Motorsport is dangerous. It always has been. Every driver who steps into the cockpit knows they're risking everything. But in 2018, something new appeared. Something strange. A curved ring of titanium above the driver's head. The halo. Fans claimed it was unnecessary. Drivers hated it.
I think as soon as I have that thing on my car, I don't like it. And I'm not even sitting in the car.
But then it started saving lives. So, this is the tragic story of the halo, and every time it has saved a driver from almost certain death. There have been a number of heartbreaking fatalities over the years, and while utterly tragic, at least some solace could be taken in the fact that after each incident, the sport was forced to evolve, to become safer, and to ultimately change so that no incident may happen again. And unfortunately, the story of the halo was no different. The year was 2009, and we begin at Brands Hatch. Not in Formula 1, but Formula 2. It was a seemingly ordinary Sunday afternoon, with the race unfolding as normal, until, out of literally nowhere, everything changed. The tyre of Clark's destroyed car bounced down the circuit, and as Henry Surtees rounds the corner, tragedy strikes. The tyre hits him directly on the head, instantly knocking him unconscious, and with his foot still pinned to the accelerator, his car veers off track and into the barriers. Medics rush in, and the circuit fell silent. He was airlifted to hospital, but the impact was catastrophic. Henry Surtees tragically passed away later that evening. He was just 18 years old. It was a haunting reminder that, for all the progress in single-seater safety, the driver's head remained terrifyingly exposed. And just 6 days later, the motorsport world was forced to relive the same nightmare, this time in Formula 1. It was a seemingly normal qualifying session at the Hungarian Grand Prix. The camera panned to Felipe Massa, who was following the car of Rubens Barrichello just ahead. But then, a horrifying scene unfolded. Medics rushed to the scene, and what they found was horrifying. Felipe's helmet was cracked, and he was rushed to the hospital with a fractured skull. As it turns out, a spring from Barrichello's car ahead had broken free and struck Massa's helmet at over 155 miles per hour. He survived, but his season was over, and his career was never the same. 2 freak accidents, 2 devastating reminders, and one message that could no longer be ignored. Formula 1 and the junior categories needed head protection. In the years that followed, the FIA began quietly exploring new ways to protect drivers from debris strikes and impacts that would otherwise be fatal. But for one driver, the development of the halo didn't come soon enough, as Formula 1 faced one of the darkest moments to date. It was the Japanese Grand Prix, and the weather was treacherous. Even the most experienced drivers were struggling to keep their car on track. And then, on lap 42, but that was far from the worst of it. In one of the most shocking decisions of all time by the FIA, they allowed a recovery tractor to enter the track while the race was still ongoing. No red flag, no safety car, and what happened next was beyond words. Jules Bianchi lost control of his car as it aquaplaned at 76 miles per hour towards the crane tractor. His exposed helmet collided with the crane tractor at a peak 254 Gs. He was rushed to the nearest hospital, and after a few hours of waiting, the worst news came through.
As Bianchi remains in critical but stable condition, his family has confirmed that the brain injury he suffered is a diffuse axonal injury. Now, this type of injury is common amongst patients with severe head trauma and is one of the most devastating.
He was put into an induced coma, but tragically, after a 9-month fight, he died on the 17th of July, 2015. While this devastating accident was, in many ways, the result of failures within the FIA, it nevertheless became the catalyst that forced the sport to act, to finally expedite the development of improved cockpit protection. And while there is much debate on whether this device would have saved Jules, the lesson was clear. Safety was paramount, and Formula 1 could never allow such a tragedy to happen again. The FIA, along with the teams, worked relentlessly to develop a device capable of protecting a driver's head from immense loads and flying debris. Several concepts were trialed, including a shield design that Sebastian Vettel even tested on track. But after extensive testing, the now iconic titanium halo was chosen. And while drivers and fans alike initially hated it,
it sends the wrong message, safety. I think F1 is very safety at the moment as we are, and for me it looks horrible. I don't like it, and I don't know, it's just one of these personal things that I wouldn't like to see it.
The FIA made it mandatory for the 2018 season, not just in Formula 1 but across all junior categories as well. And thank God they did, because without it, the next few years of motorsport could have been utterly tragic. It was the Spanish Formula 2 race, just months after the halo was first introduced to the sport. Up to that point, it had been under intense criticism and was yet to face a true real-world test. That all changed on lap 4. Honda Juniors Tadasuke Makino and Nirei Fukuzumi tangled on the exit of turn 4, sending Fukuzumi's car soaring into the air. As it came crashing down, his left rear wheel came perilously close to striking Makino's head, only stopped by the halo. Makino later admitted that he believed the halo saved his life, with the device sustaining major damage from the crash. The halo had passed its first real test, but the next crash that year in Formula 1 was on a whole nother level. It was just a few months later at the Belgium Grand Prix. At a track like Spa, it's almost a guarantee that chaos will unfold in some way or another. But I don't think anybody quite expected it to be just seconds after the lights went out.
Lights out and away we go here at Spa. Hamilton gets away well, Perez as well, covering his teammate. Hamilton moves over to cover up Sebastian Vettel, and there's locking up in a crash, and Fernando Alonso goes over the top there of Charles Leclerc's Sauber.
It's almost impossible to see what happened in the carnage, but as it turns out, Nico Hülkenberg got a little too enthusiastic on the throttle and left it way too late to brake, slamming into the rear of Fernando Alonso. The Spaniard was launched over Leclerc's car before landing back down on the Monegasque's halo with a force of 13,000 pounds. 13,000. Just imagine if that had been Charles's head. And it was clear from the drivers' reactions that the halo had more than proven its worth.
Another big airborne moment. First question, obviously, are you okay?
Now I feel okay, but I think on the positive side, we are all fine, especially Charles, that I flew over his car. And the halo today was a very good thing to have.
By now, any debate over the halo's place in motorsport was long gone. And fast forward to the Formula 3 race at Monza in 2019, and we had another utterly mind-bending moment that proved exactly why. Monza, the Temple of Speed, one of the most iconic, beloved tracks in the world. And with Tifosi out in full force, the atmosphere is unlike anywhere else. But with its immense speed is danger. Nowhere is this more true than the Parabolica, a long, fast-sweeping right-hander that slingshots drivers onto the main straight. But in 2019, it wasn't the corner itself that was the biggest threat, it was what lay beyond it. To stop drivers from exceeding track limits, the FIA had installed a giant sausage curb on the runoff area, thick raised strips designed to punish anyone who ran wide. Many drivers and fans considered them dangerous, and in the closing laps of the race, Alex Peroni proved exactly why. Nobody could believe what they'd just seen. I mean, that crash looks completely unsurvivable, and yet by some miracle, Peroni climbed out. On his own 2 feet no less, the halo had done its job once again. A crash that, just a few years prior, would have been fatal was now survivable. But even that looked like child's play compared to the halo's next test, because just 1 year later, Formula 1 would witness the most terrifying crash of the modern era. Crash so violent, so explosive, that it seemed not even the halo was enough to save the driver's life. It was the 2020 Bahrain Grand Prix, and I'm sure a lot of you remember what happened that weekend. I mean, it's practically impossible to forget. As the lights went out, everything seemed perfectly normal. But then, out of literally nowhere,
The track already, and that is that damage for Lando Norris. Certainly damage, and a big fire there as they exited out of turn 3, and that looks very nasty indeed, and unsurprisingly, that is a red flag.
The world stopped. I had no words for what I was seeing. No words at all, because at that moment, it looked certain we'd just lost another driver. Grosjean's car was split in two. The front half of the car, his half, was buried deep in the barriers, completely engulfed in flames. The medical car arrived within seconds, and the marshals ran straight towards the inferno. No hesitation, no fear, trying desperately to fight the blaze. But it looked hopeless. Each second felt like an eternity. But then, after 27 seconds trapped inside the fireball, the unthinkable happened. He emerged through the fire, alive. Even now, every time I see it, it gives me chills. How was he alive? It didn't make any sense. He was airlifted to hospital, and it was later confirmed that he was, for the most part, all okay. Somehow he'd escaped with burns to his hands and feet, and nothing more. But how? How do you survive something like that? As it turns out, in a gut-wrenching split second, Grosjean had moved across the track after turn 3, right into Daniil Kvyat's racing line. The contact speared him straight into the steel barrier at almost 120 miles per hour. The impact measured 67 Gs. 67. Every single piece of modern safety equipment played its part that day. The hands device, the fireproof suit, the chassis itself. But there's one thing that unquestionably saved Grosjean's life. The halo. When the car struck the barrier, the halo absorbed the impact and forced the metal guardrail apart, creating just enough space for Grosjean's head to survive the crash. Without it, the barrier would have shredded through the cockpit. There's no debate. Without the halo, Grosjean would have died instantly. The 2021 F1 season is remembered as one of the most intense championship battles in recent years. On one side, the challenger, Max Verstappen. On the other, the 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton. The two were locked in a vicious fight for the title. Each race felt like a war. Each corner a potential disaster. So, when the two drivers met again in Monza, the world held its breath. Hamilton had just exited the pits, while Verstappen was charging down the main straight at over 200 miles per hour. Neither gave an inch as they approached turn 1, and in the blink of an eye...
Will Hamilton and Verstappen, and this time Verstappen and Hamilton have crashed out, and they are both out!
The Red Bull hit the inside curb before being launched into the air, landing directly on top of Hamilton's Mercedes. You can literally see the halo save Hamilton's life in real time. I mean, just look at how much force it deflected. But either way, Max wasn't all too happy about the incident.
That's what you get when you don't leave the space.
And that brings us to the 2022 British Grand Prix, a weekend that left the entire paddock in shock. Not one, but two terrifying accidents that took place at Silverstone, both within mere hours of each other. The first incident came during the Formula 2 feature race. It was only lap 1, but chaos struck almost immediately. After running wide, Roy Nissany squeezed Dennis Hauger off the track, and then, out of nowhere...
Into the path of another car! Big accident there! Dennis Hauger!
Oh my god. Once again, a sausage curb was to blame. It launched Hauger's car like a missile straight into the path of Nissany. The impact was horrifying. All I can say is, thank God for the halo, because without it, I dread to think what could have happened. But the halo wasn't done saving lives that weekend, because the next crash honestly made my heart stop. It was the F1 race, and as the cars lined up on the grid, Zhou Guanyu sat in 9th, an impressive qualifying for the rookie. But when the lights went out, he had a pretty terrible start, and none other than Nicholas Latifi jumped him off the line. Just ahead, George Russell had an even slower start and was drifting left to defend against Pierre Gasly, who was charging down the middle. And then, it only took the slightest touch for disaster to strike. That was just brutal. Even George Russell himself jumped out of his car and sprinted over to help. That's how you know it's serious. Joe's car was wedged between the fence and the tire barrier, leaving the driver no room to escape. I can't even imagine what that must have felt like. Trapped, disorientated, and unable to move. The claustrophobia must have been next level. By some miracle, Joe was eventually pulled out of the wreckage and rushed to hospital, and unbelievably, he was completely fine. No broken bones, no serious injuries. That is nothing short of a miracle. And honestly, we all need to take a moment to appreciate the halo, because without it, Joe's head would have been dragging along the tarmac for hundreds of meters. I dread to think about that outcome. So yeah, while we all have to joke about the FIA from time to time, credit where it's due. In the face of constant criticism and backlash, they still pushed forward and developed a device that could withstand unimaginable forces, and in doing so, save lives. Over and over again. The Halo didn't just make F1 safer, it changed it forever. And if you want to see some more utterly insane crashes, check out the video on Pastor Maldonado, because crashing was basically his specialty.